What is up, my friends? How are we? I hope you're all having a wonderful weekend up to this point, and fingers crossed by the end of this stream, it'll be a little bit better. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are, of course, going to talk about Liverpool's fantastic... Okay. Slow? There's a window happening, and there's apparently transfers in the plan, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the England game a little bit later on, of course. Argentina playing tonight as well. We'll talk about Curtis Jones and his situation. Of course, a lot on Richard Hughes and his work to be done this summer, and anything else that you guys would like to discuss. This one is it's going to be a more laid-back stream, so I hope you're all in good form, and yeah, let's get cracking with the clock. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are underway with the Late Night Agenda 100. It isn't so late tonight, but with, of course, England kicking off at 10 o'clock, I wanted to give everybody a chance to go get settled in and enjoy that game. I mean, I've been asked all day for my predictions for it, and honestly, I really don't know. I didn't think Norway would get past Brazil, but they did, and they did so very well. England were hugely impressive in the quarter-final against Mexico. So heaven knows what way this one goes tonight, but as a neutral, I'm intrigued, and I'm going to sit back and enjoy it. Probably won't be able to stay up all the way for the McGregor fight at 4 a.m. though, because I'm not a huge UFC fan, so the idea of paying 30 quid to watch it doesn't really interest me. Let's get stuck into, let's have a conversation around Geertruida, actually, to kick us off, if I could, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the first poll question of the day we've asked, and it's a mirror of the question that we asked in the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp. Basically, we want to know, would you be happy if Liverpool did sign João Gomes from Wolves? That move that was proposed for him to go to Atletico Madrid fell apart. Romano said it's been off the table since last month, so let's wait and see what happens. But there have been comments in the past from Gomes about life at Liverpool and how he'd like to, well, come and play for us one day. But something earlier on from Caught Offside caught my eye, because it feels like a bit of lazy journalism, but hey, I don't know, maybe there's some truth to it. They said that Arsenal have added RB Leipzig defender Geertruida to their shortlist for the right-back position. And the piece goes on to say as well that Andoni Iraola is also looking at him for the right-back position. They go on to talk about a €25 million price tag that he'd be available for from RB Leipzig. But I don't know about this one. I don't see Liverpool making that move, because every time his name has come up over the past few months, it's been batted back away again. But then again, I really don't know at this point what to expect. Transfer window isn't going as fast as maybe some impatient people like me would like, but I did see something earlier on that made me a little bit more relaxed. So apparently, over the course of the last, whatever it is, 10, 15 years, Liverpool have got 50% of their transfers done before the first game of pre-season and 50% after the first game of pre-season. Now, we know that our first pre-season game is 25th of July in the United States. But I don't know, unless we're getting 4 signings max and we get one more in before that, I don't know how optimistic to feel about that old statistic. But let me know what you guys are thinking on it. Are you concerned for this transfer window, or are you relaxed and think it's a slow burner, but it'll get going one way or the other? Tom said, would you say 20 million plus Elliott for Noosa? I don't think those numbers would add up, because Harvey Elliott, Tom, at this moment in time is probably only valued at about 20 million quid, maybe even a smidgen less, because of the contractual situation at Liverpool, which again is one that I've been banging on, complaining about for a long time. We're not seeing full value for these players. And honestly, I don't want to get rid of Elliott, Tom. As a fan, I don't want to get rid of him. I want Elliott to be kept around and hopefully extended at Liverpool, because I think we could do it as services this season anyway, and then take it from there. But of course, with just 12 months to go on his contract, Tom, we'll have to wait and see how it pans out. I mean, pretty much everything that I've read has suggested that he would at least get the chance in the United States to show Andoni Iraola what he can do. But let's wait and see how it all pans out. And thank you, Tom, by the way. 12 months with us as a member, bro. Really appreciate that. Jay Burke said, yep, only 4 signings between us and the league title. Seems about right. It's so I read something from Ian Doyle earlier on, and I don't really know how to feel about what he said, because a lot of it's kind of common sense, but then a lot of it is, again, I just think smoke being blown up the old director's backside at Liverpool. But this is what Mr. Doyle had to say. He said, usually it's difficult to judge the influence of a sporting director in the short term. Richard Hughes' time at Liverpool will ultimately be judged on how last summer's £450 million transfer splurge eventually performs. And despite the increased likelihood of a move to the Saudi Pro League later this year, there's no suggestion that he remains anything other than fully committed to seeing out Liverpool's business this summer, the hard yards of which have already been put in during the 9 months leading up to this window opening. He will want to guide these deals over the line. Fans are right to be somewhat concerned at the uncertainty behind the scenes, which is becoming an increasingly regular feature at Liverpool. But Hughes won't want to tarnish his own reputation by not putting in a proper shift for the rest of this window. Now, I guess the way I'd like to respond to that is a lot of good points from Ian in there. Can't really argue with a lot of them, but the point about it being hard to judge a sporting director in the short term, I think is a valid one, and one that I'd like to expand a little bit on. These are positions that should be longer term positions, but what we've seen in recent times, and it's not just Liverpool only, is sporting directors seem to be only coming in now doing 2-3 year cycles of football clubs before heading off. And it's a position that you would ideally want some longevity in, because this person is a huge part of the planning for the future of the football club. So to see, Hughes looks like he's only going to do 2 and a little bit of his 3 years. We know that Michael Edwards is already gone, so that's 2 years into his 3 years. So the part about Liverpool fans being concerned about some of the changes behind the scenes, I have to say, I would be one of them. I do think it's a little bit concerning the amount of churn we do have of these type of positions over the years. But Asa Force, or Froze, as we said, bargain signings from relegated teams do fancy us Robbo, Genie, Shaqiri. Yeah, we've always been somebody who likes to delve into the relegation market and get some bargains for sure. And GOMES would fit for a few reasons. One, we've a good relationship with his agency, Guest a Few, who of course is represented at the head by George Mendes. So we have a good relationship there. We've done plenty of business with them in the past, but he has spoken in the past about a desire to come and play for Liverpool. And I'm not talking about the tweet that I mentioned earlier on, which basically said, wow, look at this Liverpool team, unbelievable pressing, a joy to watch. But he does have form for expressing his desire to come to Liverpool one day. He said, Liverpool is a team I would play for. I have the greatest desire to play. Playing in the Champions League is my biggest dream, and that of my family, my biggest dream in football. So for me, I would absolutely welcome João Gomes to Liverpool, particularly at the rumoured £40 million price, because of course I think it was £38 million plus £2 million in add-ons was the deal that was initially agreed to take him to Atletico. So if Liverpool could get him for around that price, I think it would be a very, very sensible piece of business. But let's wait and see what happens. Rafa said, McGregor, let's go. See United, Ederson fell through. Yeah, so I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it's something to do with the medical. It was they had second thoughts about it in the medical over the United States, and then obviously they did a second one and they didn't like the look of whatever they've seen. And I haven't really been across this transfer, so I don't really know the ins and outs of it. But yeah, I had seen that it fell through, my man. And for the McGregor thing, I wouldn't have a clue how to expect that fight to go later on. I'm not a big UFC person. Obviously, I'll look at the result tomorrow morning and see how Paddy got on as well. Save the manual, said, for 40 million in this window is a bargain. I would agree, and the precedent is kind of already been set there, because a deal has already been agreed at those numbers. So I couldn't imagine Wolves all of a sudden then turning around and go, no, we want 60 or 70 million quid. So again, I'm not trying to say it's a done deal. It absolutely is not. But it's a doable deal. It's a deal that we know Liverpool have at least considered in the past. And it's a deal that is now back on the table with that Atletico Madrid move falling through. Did you see what James Wathan said about Krupi? Forgive me, I don't know who that is. And again, I'm not trying to say that in a disparaging way. I just don't know who the person is. But the last thing I'd seen about Krupi was that there was a couple of clubs, Spurs included, that were looking to make a move for him. But honestly, I don't know anything else after that. I think there was an article that said, and this might be what you're talking about, mate, that he prefers a move to Spurs over a move to PSG, which in one way sounds a bit far-fetched, but in another way, I kind of get it if he thinks that's going to get him a route to playing senior football at a little bit of a higher level more regularly, maybe. But it is mad seeing so many players willing to run to Spurs this summer after the catastrophe they've had really for the last couple of seasons. Uh, Heidi, excuse me, mate, said, "Hey Craig, as a Forest fan, what do you think of these Curtis Jones links to Forest?" Well, firstly, mate, welcome in. Lovely to have you with us. Look, I've nothing but respect for Nottingham Forest as a football club. My wife's a Nottingham Forest fan, but it seems as if Jones doesn't want another move in the Premier League. And I don't think it's necessarily a slight or a knock towards Nottingham Forest. I think he just prefers the idea of moving away from the Premier League. And if that Inter Milan deal came around again at a decent number that Liverpool accepted, maybe. But I can see why Nottingham Forest would be interested. It's a very sensible potential bit of business for Nottingham Forest, especially with that Elliot Anderson money burning a hole in Maranaka's pocket. But I don't think it's one that will happen. And again, not me trying to knock Forest, nothing but respect for Forest. I just think this is a Curtis Jones thing. He had a meniscus injury at the start of the season. That's why Ederson. Oh, I'd seen you, mate. Sorry, GMBITXX. I'd seen you mention that earlier on, mate, but I wasn't sure whether you were talking about Ederson or not. Yeah, look, that could explain it. I'm not going to profess to be an expert on knee injuries or anything like that, but it could absolutely explain why United weren't fully convinced by the medical. Wasted to go said, "Not confident for next season. No movement in the market for us. Feels like the club is falling apart at the minute." Look, I kind of feel the same, but a lot of people are writing that Liverpool's transfer plans are in place. Let me try and find what I was talking about earlier on, and I'll bring it back up for you so we can give it a bit more clarity. So Simon Jones, I think of the Mail, said, "Michael Edwards leaves feeling satisfied with the key work he returned to do has largely been completed. Liverpool have come through a major period of change. The football leadership structure he put in place, he believes, is strong and well equipped for the future." Now, look, my information is there was a bit of button heads behind the scenes between the two different factions, so we say, the data-led driven people and the old-fashioned scouts. But they go on to say, or Simon goes on to say, "Succession planning is there, preparation and planning is complete for the upcoming season, and new coaching team has been appointed with a clear vision for the next phase of the club's development." Then he goes on to say that Richard Hughes will depart for Al Hilal once the summer transfer window closes. Again, that's not really breaking news to any of us, but it still feels a little bit weird that the man who is getting us through this window is pissing off at the end of it and doesn't want to be here to even see out the final year of his 3-year agreement. That is a little bit concerning. And they can talk about succession planning as much as they want, fair enough, but I've always been consistent in one thing, whether it's a player, whether it's an executive, whether it's a coach. I don't believe that anybody's giving you 100% if their focus and their future lies elsewhere. That's just my belief as a human being. I'm sure that Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes have done plenty of groundwork, but as was said a minute ago by Wasted to Go, not much happening with regards to transfers coming in yet, is there? So, I'm nervy, but I do think there are a lot more relaxed people than me out there. I just feel it's a big window. We got to get it right. I have no concerns about the coach. Like I've said, really excited to see his brand of football. Can't wait for pre-season to get underway. But another signing or two would certainly, especially a big signing, would really calm the nerves a little bit. That right wing is just one that still I'm concerned about. Stevie boy, always a pleasure, my man. How does a football club the size of Liverpool allow 8 players to walk out the door for free next summer? Your guess is as good as mine, Stevie boy. Your guess is as good as mine. I have to say, I keep asking myself, is there an accountancy reason for this or something that my dumb ass just can't understand? I've asked people before and nobody's really been able to give me an answer, even people who are, far better qualified to talk about football finances. It just feels weird because apart from anything else, that's 8 players going out the door that you have to replace, or at least, let's say, a percentage of them have to be replaced. And that's going to cost money. So surely, if you're kicking the can down the road a year and you're going to lose these guys, surely you'd bring in as much money as you can and get something in to help with the rebuild before these lads disappear for free in a year's time. But it seems to be something, mate, that we've all seen happen more than we'd like at Liverpool over the last 5 years, probably. With the Madrid links for who's this one? Sorry, that's just I can't read the other part of your comment, dude. Let me just check it in here. Sorry, I can't read that on my screen. Just bear with me. Where was it? With the Madrid links for Maka, would you do a swap deal for Camavinga? No, I wouldn't, because I don't think Camavinga is the right player to bring in to exchange for Alexis McAllister. That's just my take on it. I just think, his injury concerns over the last while worry me. And yeah, I don't know, because he's not been a name that has been mentioned to me or one that I've seen linked too often to Liverpool. So no, not really. A year ago, probably would have bitten your hand off for him, but now, nah, it wouldn't be for me anyway. But look, maybe I'm on my own on that one. And thank you, my friend. 29 months with us as a member as well. Absolute legend. Would you want Nusa plus Rayan or the Swiss right wing? I take Nusa and Rayan. Yeah. I don't know much about the Manzambi guy, the guy that I think has been linked with Newcastle as well. I would be a liar if I said I knew anything about him before the World Cup, Jaden. But I think Nusa would be a very good piece of business. And I think Rayan he's the best option after missing out on Yan Diamonde on the right-hand side. But again, how reasonable is it to expect that we could get him from Bournemouth? Probably not very, at least not for an absolutely insane offer. And I don't know how this all pans out in the wide areas. We know we need at least one more. And I think we probably haven't heard the end of the Gakpo situation either. I think there's still a little twist in the tail to come there. Grizzly, at this point, and by the way, thank you, mate, for $20 super chat. Incredibly kind of you, sir. At this point, I don't want Barcola. PSG wants us to fully fund Yan Diamonde. 150 million for our second choice is a joke. Get some sleepers that Iriola can work with. Why does it feel like every player we want is 100 and 150? It's madness. So this is a tough one, because I have to admit, with the market being what it is for Diamonde and the price that they're going to ask for him, I kind of understand to some extent PSG wanting top dollar for Barcola, because, he is experienced but still young. 23, I think, just about to turn 24. World Cup with France at the minute, Champions League winner back-to-back seasons, and still young enough to develop a little bit more. So I understand them asking top dollar. And I think, if Liverpool could do a deal for Barcola in pounds sterling, let's say, somewhere between 80 and 90. I think that's reasonable in this market, but I do agree it's a dangerous game. Waiting to see what happens at PSG and whether they let Barcola go, and then whether Barcola wants to come to Liverpool. Like, what I don't want to happen, Grizzly, is, let's say we decide, right, we're going for Barcola, and we get a little bit of encouragement, and then we start lashing in bids, and then 2 weeks later, maybe Morgan Rogers' deal to Arsenal doesn't happen, and Arsenal come in and gazump us, let's say, and we're left with egg on our face again. And I wonder, is that part of what's happening at the minute, with it being so quiet? Are Liverpool making sure that we don't get any more embarrassing situations popping up in the transfer window? Or are they looking to trigger some release clauses that maybe haven't come active yet or are just about to come active? I'm fascinated by it. But again, like I said many, many times, a couple of more signings would calm the nerves a little bit. Hannington, how are you, bro? Lovely to see you win. Hope you're well. I think we dodged the bullet with Diamonde. Remember, Nicolas Pepe was highly rated before he went to Arsenal, and things were different. I guess time will tell on that one. I do understand your perspective, and I do understand other people who said it was a ridiculous amount of money. It was an illogically high amount of money, but that's what you're paying for talent, and that was the number one choice. Like, if he wasn't our number one choice, I wouldn't have felt so disappointed in it. But, we've all seen, I've been part of many conversations. Journalists have been writing about the fact that he was the guy that Liverpool wanted, and they thought they were going to get him. So we'll see over time whether it turns out to be a lucky miss or whether it turns out to be, a bargain for PSG in the grand scheme of things. But I just want us to get cracking, mate, and get in a decent winger that we can all get behind. Like, I love the signing of Victor Munoz. I think that's incredibly good business, incredibly good price, and I think we're going to enjoy watching him. So no doubts about that. And at the price we paid for him as well, it feels like in a world of crazy money, that seems like a pretty good deal. Kevin Shada could be a good shout, not too much. Yeah, experience as well in the Premier League, but like I've said, not a name I've seen any links with. Like Coyote, that was another good example of a name that kept coming up in conversations with us Liverpool fans, but that never really had much meat on the bones behind the scenes. And then I think, if I'm right, I think Coyote has signed a new deal at Brentford. What's this one coming in? So Manchester United now are apparently in the mix for Ayub Buadi. I'm really intrigued to see where this guy ends up, because here's my take on Buadi. I didn't know all that much about him before the World Cup. When I watched him play against Brazil, I was super impressed. I was really, really impressed, and I don't think I'm the only one. But after that, I felt like he was okay for Morocco in the World Cup. Now, I know it's a big expectation you have. He's only an 18-year-old guy, but I didn't really see him kick on in the tournament after that Brazil game. Maybe others feel differently about it, but as the price kept going up and up and up, I kept thinking, is this price going up fair because Morocco are progressing, or is it because of his performances? Because I didn't see performances that seemed to warrant 10 million quid increase every game. That just seemed ridiculous. The initial price of about 60 million quid that was mentioned at the very start of the World Cup, that seemed reasonable for somebody with very limited experience. But again, I've no idea where he ends up. Liverpool's name has been mentioned, PSG's name has been mentioned, Arsenal's name has been mentioned. I think he probably would like the idea of a move to PSG, but again, haven't got a clue how that all pans out. Star Player, how are you? Hey Craig, how's it going? Seen some Zabarani whispers, Iriola experience, only 23. I'd absolutely take him for 50, 60 million. Thoughts? Well, thank you, mate, firstly, for 6 months with us as a member. So the only time I remember some links to him was towards the end of the season, if my memory is right, or maybe even it was as far back as the January window. I do think he is a player that is sellable for PSG, but I don't know that Liverpool are... Actually, do you know what? I'll be honest. I don't know what Liverpool are doing in the centre-back market. I don't know how much of a priority they view it as. I think it's a huge priority for us. Expecting a 35-year-old Virgil van Dijk to be bulletproof again for another season, on top of Joe Gomez, who respectfully always picks up a couple of knocks. I don't think he's going to be able to be fit throughout the entire season. And then you've got two youngsters who haven't kicked the ball in the Premier League yet, both of them coming off time away with various injuries. And obviously Giovanni Leone's a really big injury. So it seems almost incomprehensible to me that we don't get another centre-back in this window. Now, maybe it's somebody who can play full-back and centre-back. Perhaps that wouldn't be out of the realms of possibility. But also, we talked about succession planning a little while ago when we were talking about Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards, the sporting director. I think if you're going to talk about succession planning, I'm concerned about the succession planning on the pitch. I'm concerned about what happens when Alisson leaves. I'm concerned about what happens when Virgil leaves. Because in my eyes, we haven't got replacements for them yet. Georgie Mamadashvili could be the Alisson replacement, but I don't know if he's good enough yet. And for Virgil, we just don't have one. It's that simple. And I'd like to see us try to get somebody in. Now, I don't know, I'm putting this out there. Maybe Liverpool wait towards January and see if they can get Schlotterbeck. Or maybe Liverpool go late in the window and see if they can get Schlotterbeck and figure out something around the medical. I know he's out for, I think it was 8 weeks or something like that. But outside of somebody like him, I really don't know who else we could be looking at. Inacio was a name that was often thrown around, but it looks like AC Milan and his former boss want him. So maybe he goes in that direction. But for us, this is what makes it really tough to come on here and be upbeat, because sometimes you hear of a lot of rumours and a lot of names. Like Diamonde, it was so clear, it was so apparent, it was being spoken about by everyone behind the scenes. But outside of that, lads, honestly, it's tough sledding. There's not much out there at the minute with regards to bona fide information now. That could be a good thing. I would prefer a world where Liverpool's transfer targets and secrets don't get leaked and we wake up one day and bang, there's a deal. Even though it would be detrimental for my company and my business as a fan, that would be far more pleasant for me. I love those surprises, and I loved hearing about the Victor Munoz one. But yeah, just excited for something to happen. And excited for the new season, but also nervous because I'm not fully sold on FSG. I don't think they're the worst owners in the world by any stretch, but there's been too many windows where I felt like we've left a little bit on the table and not finished the job. Zach said, "Hey Craig, I'm a ball boy at the World Cup." Nice one. Well, I hope that's gone well, my man. What an excellent experience that must be for you. And I watched Belgium's centre-back Ngoy, and I've been pretty impressed. Really good on the ball and very athletic. Want to know what you think. Do you know what, mate? I'm not even going to pretend that I paid any attention to him. I didn't. When I was watching Belgium, I was having a look at Yuri Tielemans because it fascinates me sometimes that you can watch Tielemans one day and he's amazing. You watch him another day and he's just invisible. But of course, he got injured in the warm-up, so wasn't there. I don't know, mate. Sorry. You got a good look at him. I don't know anything about the guy, but I really do appreciate you coming in and, sharing that bit of information. And I hope you're enjoying the World Cup. Archie said, Endrick as a right winger. Look, this is where I put my full disclosure out. I don't fucking like Endrick. I'm not saying he's not a good footballer. I think he's a little shithouse. And I remember him at Anfield trying to injure one of our players. I can't remember if it was Van Dijk or Canade, but he came off the bench for Madrid and he was a little shithouse. Now, I know he's done very well at Lyon. I know he's done well when he went there, but again, I keep coming back and asking, we don't really do those type of deals, and it's never been a name that I've seen mentioned with Liverpool. But then again, like I said, maybe one day you get a surprise, you wake up and something happens. But, on Endrick, would he have the pace? And that's a genuine question, lads. I don't know. I'm not going to profess to be the world's biggest Endrick fan or knowledgeable person. Is he fast? Would he be fast enough? Because that should be at the top of the priority list. Pace should be right up there near the top of that list for me. Pace, the ability to take on a man, and of course some end product and getting the balls in for Isak as well. It was Canade, was it? Yeah, I just remember it was one of the big centre-backs, and I just remember thinking, Jesus, this lad going around putting himself about. Nico Paz from Real Madrid for a right wing, or Nico Williams. Well, Real Madrid have already bought back him and loaned him back out, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, there was something done to extend his time at Como. I don't know I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I know he's going to go back to Madrid after his time with Como, if my memory is correct, or at least maybe he went back to Como and there's an option for Madrid to buy him back again. But something happened about that towards the last couple of weeks. Nico Williams is an interesting one. Normally, this is where I'd bat it away, right, and say, nah, Nico Williams, no chance. But our head coach gives us that chance. And Donny Ariola, being from that region, isn't in there, like you've seen with the likes of Zubamendi and Marino going to Arsenal. Their coach was able to get players from that neck of the woods as well. So, maybe, but two things about that. He's already on a pretty high wage at Athletic Club. I think it's about €300,000 per week, there or thereabouts. So we'd probably want a big, hefty fee. And it's not a name I've seen mentioned, but would I take him? It's certainly an interesting one, yes. And it's a name that I actually thought would end up at Barcelona at one point. Hasn't happened, obviously. So if he was willing to move, as a fan, as a Liverpool fan, I wouldn't say no. Robert said, thanks for the fake news as always. I don't think, Robert, you understand how this works. I've tried to explain this calmly and rationally, Robert, many times, and maybe I keep underestimating your stupidity, but I try to give you the benefit of the doubt. This is how this show works. I'm going to explain it just so everybody has a clear understanding of it. When we put a title in, or a thumbnail in, or a story in, you'll notice that something comes after it, which is me telling you where it comes from. These aren't my news. I'm not a journalist. I'm a football fan. We go and aggregate the news, we sift through it, we think what might be worth a conversation, and we bring it in. If I have something that I know, I'll come out and say it. My sources say X or Y. But 95% of the stuff that you trolls moan about and call fake news has nothing to do with me. It's me simply bringing you. Do you ring up Sky News and start shouting at them about news you don't like? It's weird, mate. And just admit you're jealous. Just admit you'd love to be sitting where I'm sitting, and you're just trying to sit there and take any shot to knock somebody back. it's getting a bit tiring. Like, you can't be that thick, surely. Like, I want to give you the benefit of the doubt, Robert. And anybody, like, you can't be that dumb. You can't. I refuse to believe humanity has gotten that far, mate. This is a show where we discuss the media stories. The fact that you're too stupid to understand that, dude, that's not on me. So again, I've gone out of my way to explain it to you. Just because we talk about something doesn't mean we're saying it's a fact. Just because we raise a talking point doesn't mean I'm saying it's going to happen. And I hope that you and all the other dumb fucks out there that try to claim we spread fake news grasp that one day. I really do. Because it would do us all a fucking favour and save me a massive headache of having to sit here and explain it to you because, I don't know, you're either dumb or you're a child who can't really understand what a question mark is or an asterisk is or an exclamation point is. Maybe Google this shit, dude. Or just ask a fucking question and be proactive, be nice, try and come in and have a chat with us, learn something. What's the point of what you do? There's so many cool people here. We have so many lovely nights, so many great chats. We share a love of the football club. We try to figure out stuff together. I don't get it. I really just don't get it. Life's so much better when you participate in things and you get involved in it. Or at the very least, dude. Like, why do you spend your time going around shouting at people who you profess not to like? Would you not just not watch? If I don't like a TV show, I don't ring up Sky News or Sky Sports or whatever and go, I don't fucking like this show, get it off the telly. I just change the channel. And that's what you have the ability to do. Right, let's keep going. Liz, thank you. I'm so glad you're in, Liz. Mark gave me your message earlier on, and I'm so glad to see that you're in, Liz. I hope that you're, and I don't want to give out your public information, Liz, or your private information, but I hope that things keep going a bit better for you. I heard about the setback, Liz. I'm really, really sorry, and we all send our love. Mark did share it with me, but I don't want to obviously say it publicly, Liz, so I hope that you're okay, and my family send their love. What Pro League does Andre Gomes play for? He plays for Wolves, mate. He plays for Wolves now. Oh, sorry, Andre Gomes, excuse me. João Gomes is the guy we're talking about from Wolves. My apologies. Andre Gomes, I can't remember, I don't know. Are we talking about the guy Andre, as in the guy that was in Brazil that we were linked with, that went to Wolves? Or are we talking about somebody else? Sorry, I don't know if we've got names mixed up. Do you all have Karens in Ireland? Oh, God, yes. Oh, Jesus, yes, we do. I think every country has their version of a Karen, all right. Would you be happy if we got Rayan and Yakuba Minta? Both of them, yes. Like, in that scenario, the idea of Liverpool signing Minta wouldn't bother me. The thing I've only ever tried to say, Matthew, is, for me, and again, just one man's opinion, Minta just doesn't excite me. But Minta coming in as an option that doesn't have as much pressure on him to have to be a huge impact player, I'd be far more relaxed about. But him to be the Salah replacement, even, acknowledging that we're never going to get a like-for-like Salah replacement, he just doesn't excite me. But if it was a secondary signing, absolutely. Rayan for me would be a dream. I would love us to get Rayan. And that would certainly go a long way to calming my nerves after missing it in Diamande. I mean, I was so impressed with him at the World Cup when he took over from Rafinha, and the size of him and his physical presence as well for 19. They really have got a great player there at Bournemouth. My name's not even Andre, mate. I don't know what that's about. Nobody was referring to you as Andre, I don't think. Somebody was just talking about Andre Gomes. Anyway, let's keep going. Can we get Bastoni? Have you not seen what's happening with Bastoni? I certainly don't expect Liverpool to be involved in a deal for Alessandro Bastoni. Just give his name a Google. I don't really want to talk about it on here publicly because it opens up all kinds of tricky legal situations. But Van de Ven or Gomez, I'd love Van de Ven. But I don't think he leaves Spurs at the minute. I really don't. Not with the input or the investment that they're putting into that team at the minute. They've just signed John Paul Van Ecke as well to come in there and play alongside him. I actually, I'm more annoyed we did move for Vuskovic. I thought there might have been a good opportunity there to get a really good up-and-coming centre-back. But of course, you know, he's gone elsewhere to Brighton, I believe it is. For the jokes, would you take Dembele for the right wing? Do you know what? I don't know, because of his age. And that's the only thing I'm talking about there. Like, Ousmane Dembele's obviously had a very, very, very good time of it since he's went to PSG. And he was quite impressive as well when he was at Borussia Dortmund. But he's getting on a bit now. Like, what is he, 27, 28? So if you're going in there, I'd rather get somebody younger, because usually when you're talking about wingers, you want an explosive player. And they tend to drop off a bit with the explosiveness as they pick up injuries over time and they get a little bit older. Peter said, is Rayan really that good? I've never seen him get by anyone. Maybe I just haven't watched them enough. I mean, understandable, mate, that you wouldn't have watched a lot of them. I'm not going to sit here and say that I've seen more than maybe 5 or 6 games of his. But I just think if you're looking around now for promising wingers, I think he's one of them. And I think, you know, we were willing to spend money on a young Diamande. I think similarly there, I would feel comfortable with us putting a good chunk of money towards him. But then you'd probably want somebody in who was a little bit more experienced as well. Christina, lovely to see you. Hope you're well. Missed you guys and the banter. Well, it's lovely to see you back in, my friend. A pleasure as always. I hope you're having a nice summer. Mr. Bransfield, how are you, sir? Said, hey, Craig, hope everything is well. Love to the family and to yours as well, sir. Yeah, all good, mate. Can't complain. Can't complain. Looking forward to the football tonight. Obviously, England at 10 o'clock, Argentina, Switzerland at 2 o'clock. So, yeah, going to be like a pig and poo later on. What about Mohamed Simican? He can play centre-back and right-back, and we wanted him while he was at Leipzig. Again, like, I don't think as fans right now, there's many people we can totally rule out. You know, if there's a credible option in a position, you'd like to think that Liverpool are running the rule over it. Now, what I would say is all the reports seem to suggest that the groundwork is done for the summer transfer window. Now, no indications on who these players are, but they do seem to feel quite confident in the reporting or briefings behind the scenes to journalists that a lot of the hard work's done and that Liverpool just need to go and execute these transfers. Now, fingers crossed they're right. You know, none of us want to be sitting here at the end of the transfer window when the season's kicking off feeling like the squad isn't deep enough. If the squad's deep enough, then it falls on Donny Iraola and the players to make sure that they do themselves justice over the course of the year. But we just don't want to feel as fans that, again, they're not prepared. The squad isn't deep enough. A few injuries and the season can go off rail. We've seen too many of those seasons. And I would argue that this season in particular, after a really long campaign, then the World Cup, and some people had been playing at a Club World Cup beforehand as well, not Liverpool players obviously, but footballers. I just think you're probably likely to expect a lot of injuries this season. And we got off so luckily last year with Virgil and Canade being able to stay fit at centre-back for the entire season. To be honest, with Craig, I would take Murillo. He's only 24 and is not worth more than 100 mil. I would take Murillo in a heartbeat. No questions. I would take Murillo in a heartbeat as well. Has it been a name that's been linked to us a little bit in years gone by? But again, I couldn't sit here with any level of confidence and tell you a name. So what are your expectations then, lads, for the season ahead? What are you guys expecting for Liverpool come the end of this window? You know, is there disappointment that you're expecting in a particular area? Do you think we address the right wing position, or do you think maybe all of our eggs are in the Barcola basket, which could see Rio shift across to the other side? Like, I struggle to see a world if we sign Bradley Barcola where Gakpo doesn't push to get out, because you've got Barcola and you've got young Rio. And he's in his prime right now, Gakpo. And I think if you bring in him, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that situation where Gakpo raise its head and maybe him look for a move away. There was another link today. Bear with me. Sorry, just bear with me 1 second. Just get my notes here. Where was the other link? No, not that one. Yeah, it was this one. Fabrizio Romano, said Cody Gakpo is considered a priority for Spurs for the winger position. However, Liverpool are currently not opening the doors to an exit, so we have to be patient. I think the only thing that would stop a sale of Cody Gakpo for Liverpool, apart from the price, obviously, is if Liverpool didn't have a replacement. I honestly, from my gauging of the situation, journalists I've spoken to, people in the industry, I think Liverpool have a number that they would sell Gakpo for. But of course, they can't leave themselves hamstrung in that position and not having options. Mr. Bransfield said, I heard rumours a few weeks ago that Salah might stay after Areola was appointed. Is there any truth to Salah? Is there any chance for Salah staying? None. Zero. Absolutely no chance. You know, apparently, and I can't believe I'm about to say this sentence, by the way, Bransfield. I can't believe I'm about to say it, but apparently Saudi think he's asking for too much money for a move over there. Now, that sounds laughable, considering the amount of money they threw at Ronaldo and other people. But I read a report yesterday that said Kansas City is an option for him in the MLS, but that could be a struggle as well to get a package together that would suit him. But that so far Saudi aren't happy with the numbers that he's asking for. Now, that could be complete crap, but it's just something I read yesterday. Grace said, I've seen videos of Areola and I've noticed he's always smiling. Yeah, he's a really upbeat guy, a really positive character, and I love watching the bits of him on the training ground and stuff. He's a real hands-on coach, and I love that. It's proper old school stuff, so yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing Andoni Areola's Reds this year. Still taking a bit of getting used to say that. What else we got? I would like more surprise banging signings like Victor Munoz. Been here just over 12 months now. Love the channel, Craig. Thank you. Siffy, SCIFY, Siffy. Thank you. And I loved it as well, dude. Like, they are great signings. You know, like the Fabinho one. Even the late, great Diogo Jota. You know, I remember in his signing, Gini Wijnaldum. They're signings that really do excite me because, you know, they're good quality signings, and with Victor Munoz, incredibly good value as well. And somebody that Areola knows really well, and also somebody that came through at underage level in a Real Madrid team and then a Barcelona team, and then a Real Madrid team, a youth level that was pretty impressive as well. That meme guy said they spent ridiculous money on Ronaldo purely because of his media that he brings, and Salah probably doesn't have that kind of media power. Potentially, but you are talking about the most famous Muslim athlete, footballer certainly, on the planet. And that would have to surely carry a premium if you're Mohamed Salah, and rightfully so. Actually, see this jersey that I'm wearing? If anybody wants to grab themselves a bargain, I just bought one of these for my wife as well in the sale on the Liverpool app. In Euro, I got my wife this shirt for €18, 18. And I got myself a couple of bits and pieces as well. It's really worth having a look. What I tend to do when I look at the end of season sale on the Liverpool app is not look for season specific stuff. So I tend to grab stuff that's timeless, stuff that isn't linked to a season. And there is a few bits on there. Like, do you remember the gold and black jersey that they brought out this year that matched the tracksuit top? That's on sale at like 30% of the original price. There's loads of good stuff on there. If you're in the market for a bargain, I'd certainly say it's worth checking it out. I even got a tracksuit top for the young lad for like 26 quid as well. Yes, Salah does in the Muslim world way more than Cristiano, even in the Middle East. Yeah, look, I mean, he's always felt like that's the crown jewel for the Saudi Pro Leagues to try and get Mo. Right, let's check our poll anyway. So, we asked you guys, would you be happy if we signed João Gomes from Wolves? Now, I'm going to just check because I put the same poll in the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp channel. And in there, so far, we just put a yes, a no, or an unsure. So I asked, with the links to João Gomes from Wolves being a £40 million target, should Liverpool make a move from this summer? We've had 1,100 yes votes, only 127 no votes, and 118 unsure. Now, if you look at the poll we have on here as well, would we be happy if we brought João Gomes in from Wolves? 77% of the people that have voted have said yes, 9% no, and unsure 14%. So it's kind of mirroring both votes, and I would be in the yes camp. on that one. But where I find hard to really commit to it is I don't know what Iriol is looking for in that position. And, without knowing that, it's hard to give any kind of optimism or put a number on how likely you think it is. Thomas said, you get my super chat. Let me check, Thomas. I may have just missed it, dude. Bear with me, bro. You know what? I missed it, sir. Thank you for pulling me up on it, Thomas. Let me just grab it for you now, my man. Right, Hughes got rid of Morton, Kell, Kwanzaa, then stumbled over Zubamendi, Gay, didn't go for Semenyo. How would our squad be with all of those in it? Well, obviously Zubamendi, yes, we definitely wanted. Mark Gay, I still don't know, mate, why that one wasn't followed up in January. I really don't know, but I think we should have done business in the winter for a centre-back. We did, but not for the here and now. Obviously, we brought in Jeremy Jacquet. Look forward to seeing how he gets on. But yeah, look, it's going to be a tough one, like, to gauge whether it's been a successful one or not. I don't know whether his era at Liverpool is a success or not, because yes, he got some big players in. But have they been a success? Not yet. But you also would say it's way too early to write them off. I think I've missed this one as well. Hey, everyone, just wondering what you'd have taken Houlden. He's gone to Atletico for what seems like a cheap fee in this market. So Houlden was a name, I think, 2 summers ago that was talked about as coming in from Sporting, or that Liverpool were looking at. Not heard anything lately, but you are right. The 2 deals that Atletico had worked out there for João Gomes, which fell through, and then for that one, they both seem like good value. I definitely agree with you on that one. Bobby, how are you, my man? Hey, you beauty. Been out of the loop. What's new? Not much, dude. Not much, in all honesty, Bobby. It's been, apart from the Victor Munoz signing, it's been a really quiet one, because, like, even if Liverpool are looking to move some players on first, that's not exactly flying along either. So it's one that defo has me nervous, but then again, I'm probably nervous most transfer windows. I always feel like I look forward to the transfer window in the summer so much, and by the end of it, I'm usually so mentally exhausted that I'm actually glad for the window to be over. I don't know if this is supposed to be a joke that I'm missing out on, or something, mate, but I don't know, Jaden. Yeah, I've no idea. That's gone over my head, Jaden. Sorry, mate. Thomas said, thanks, man. Appreciate it. And for every hit on here, there's thousands of us real fans and decent people. I totally get that, Thomas, and I try to not get angry about it as much these days. I try to genuinely just explain it to people. Like, I understand if somebody hasn't watched the channel and they see a comment and they see a thumbnail and they go, oh, is he saying we're signing this guy? But when you come in and watch 5 minutes of a video, you see that we tell you where the story comes from. I give you a take on it. And then we ask, tell us in the comments whether you think it's legit or not. I certainly don't believe every transfer story that I read or see, and I don't think anybody does. But some people just like to use these things as a way to have a dig at us, and I think it's so unnecessary. But then again, I am a rationally, logically minded person, and maybe these people aren't. Love over hate. I love that account name, by the way. I really do, because that is kind of my ethos in life as well. So I'm right there with you. Are we optimistic about Isak? I hope so, but it's hard because I don't see much more fitness improvement when he played with Sweden. I wouldn't say I'm oozing with optimism, but he's a damn good player. And I think what's going to be key for us to get the most out of him is to get the right type of service into him, and to get the right type of players getting those balls into the 6-yard box for him to feed off. Now, he's going to have a really good chance to nail down this place, because obviously Hugo's going to be out for the foreseeable. So Isak has every opportunity now to become the starting 9, to become the guy. Up to him now whether it works out or not. Obviously we all have some concerns about injuries and stuff. They're nothing new. We had those concerns when we were bringing them in, still have them now. But last year, it never looked like this system was set up to make him succeed or to get a lot out of him. That, and of course his own fitness and the fact that he never really got going. Simon Tennant, how are you, Simon? Said thoughts on Elliot Stroud, 24-year-old Swede, was left back, left midfielder, now left midfielder, left wing links, as well as Isak. Can sign a pre-contract or can be bought now dirt cheap as his contract finishes in December. Don't know anything about him. The only Swedish player I'd really seen any links to Liverpool was Ayari, and his situation was a similar one. He was going into the last year of his Brighton contract, and maybe we are still interested in Ayari, but that's the only Swedish name I've really seen linked to Liverpool over the last month or so. Sorry, I just want to get through more of your comments here. Croatia in the house, how are we? Lovely to see you, my man. I've been in your beautiful country once and it is absolutely stunning. So lovely to have you in and thank you for joining us. Copster said, I'd sell Isak in a heartbeat. We should have never bought him or brought him. So all I can say is this, mate. If you said to me tomorrow morning, we could swap him for Julian Alvarez and it would cost us another 30 or 40 million quid, I wouldn't bat an eyelid and I'd get it done. But then again, I made no secret of the fact that Julian Alvarez was always my dream scenario for Liverpool, as much as I knew it was unrealistic. So I'm not at the point to write Isak off yet. But there's no denying that that price tag comes with a lot of pressure. And he has to live up to that. Like, he's 26, so he's not a youngster that's wet behind the ears. This is a lad that knows what Premier League football is about. And he's got to deliver now. You know, we paid big money, 125 million, plus he gave up 5 million in a loyalty bonus or something that meant Newcastle got 130 million pound. He has to step up and Wirtz has to step up. You know, it's okay to give these guys the first season to bed in. You know, I always say that when you bring in a player, don't judge them in year one. But you also can't deny that, you know, we have to see more from them in year two. They really do have to step up. Would you take Brahim Diaz as a homegrown player? So I really am being sincere in my views here. And I promise you I'm not trying to speak bad of him because he plays for Madrid or whatever. I was so underwhelmed by Brahim Diaz at the World Cup. And I say that as somebody who put a fair chunk of money on him to score or have shots on target in a lot of games. I was really underwhelmed by his impact in that team. So for me, it would be a no. But I've never really got the hype about Brahim Diaz. I know, you know, he was at Manchester City, I think, if my memory's right, before he went to Madrid. But yeah, I've never gotten it. I've never gotten the hype. Abdullah said, literally anybody. That's how bad I'm feeling about this window. Yes, Munoz was a good surprise, but still. Yeah, look, I'm an impatient dude, Abdullah, so I always understand and empathise with people who are a little bit frustrated as well. You know, others are far more calm about the situation than I am. You know, we are heading off to America relatively soon, so you'd want to see progress in the next few days on deals. Abdullah said, I can agree with the Diaz comments. I wasn't impressed by Brahim at this World Cup. Maybe Harvey Elliott could get a chance now he's back at Liverpool, said Reese. I hope so, Reese. You know, I've made no secret of the fact I'm a big Harvey Elliott fan. Named my dog after Harvey Elliott. Really want the guy to succeed. But of course, we have to talk about Elliott in the context of the contractual situation, which is, again, one of Liverpool's own making. So whatever we do with Elliott, I think it will be decided this summer. So whether that's an extension for him to stay on or whether he gets sold, I think we're going to see it happen this summer. Now, I do think he'll get the pre-season tour of America. I think Iriola will have a look at him, and he's already had a little look at him. But look, it just feels like an easy win for me because give him a new contract, give him the season, and if he doesn't fit in or it doesn't work by the end of the season, at least you've protected the value. And at least then you've put yourself back in a decent position. Now, I know for Elliott, the idea of leaving for free in a year is probably appealing as well because that would give him the freedom to decide where he wanted to go. But, you know, we need to be selfish as a club sometimes. And, you know, I like Elliott, so I hope he would stay, sign a new deal and continue to stay. Paul Wood said, I'm looking forward to manager's press conference on Monday. So am I, Paul. A little bit disappointed that I feel there'll be a lot of questions aimed at him about the Michael Edwards situation, Richard Hughes. Is he concerned about transfers being slow off the block and all this kind of stuff? But yeah, 11 a.m, I think, if my memory's right, on Monday. Definitely going to be interested to hear from him for the first time. Obviously, he did the little interview when he became Liverpool head coach with Peter McDowell, but we haven't had journalists put questions to him yet. There's still 2/3 of this window left. It'll turn out like it should. I don't know, mate. Look, I don't think there's quite 2/3, by the way. I think it's maybe a 60-40, but either way, we're splitting hairs. Here's partly why I'm nervous. Yes, it's impatience. That's part of it. I won't deny that. But there's also the side that I want Iraola to have as much time as possible to work with these guys. And yes, some players will be late back from the World Cup, maybe even targets that you want. There's nothing you can do about that. They're at the World Cup, fair enough. But I don't think every player that Liverpool are going to be linked with or interested in was necessarily at the World Cup. And we were able to get Victor Munoz done. So I'd like to see Liverpool giving Iraola the best chance to get these guys fully assimilated into the team, to get his tactics across, to give them the pre-season games, and give us the best chance to start quickly when the season gets underway. And I think to do that, ideally, you'd want the transfers done as early as possible. Especially for key positions, like right wing, centre-back for me is a key position. Midfield, I've always said, it's more of a one-in, one-out situation there. It's more about a stylistically right type of player rather than us saying we don't have enough body. We absolutely do have enough bodies in midfield, but we don't really have one particular type of midfielder. We need to go out and get somebody that will come in and be part of that double pivot in his midfield. Star Player said, I think I just love the dopamine of transfers. Tweets from Fabinho and Orstein, negotiation ones, here we goes. I love it too much, so now I'm too impatient. I just like it because it just gives clarity. It gives clarity. But whatever happens, I do try to bring myself back down by saying, right, Craig, you're unhappy about the transfers, fair enough. But imagine we're sitting here now and Slot was still coach. I'm very grateful that isn't going to be the case. Now, I'm not meaning to knock Arne Slot. He won us a league title. But it was very clear last season that it wasn't working out. So I'm really happy that at least we do have clarity going into the new season of the head coach, of the type of football we can probably expect to see. And for that, I am genuinely happy and really grateful. But I don't want the manager to not have the tools to do his job. And I just want him to have the squad depth that we know is needed in the Premier League. I mean, Arsenal, again, a great example of that last year. Every time they needed to, they looked to the bench and they had quality. They had quality options. Craig, with us being so desperate for a right winger, it makes not getting Semenyo hurt even more and is homegrown. So I've got to be honest and say, at the time that move to Manchester City happened, I didn't really know of Liverpool having made advances towards Semenyo, but I do know somebody that in their day-to-day working life at a high executive level sat down with Semenyo and was told at the point of their conversation that he thought he was going to be going to Liverpool. Now, I never had the information to say he was going to Liverpool. I never heard it from journalists or anything, but this person who I know for a fact and have seen multiple bits of footage that he's met this guy and has had conversations with this guy, told me he thinks he's going to Liverpool. Now, of course, he didn't. He ended up at Manchester City and they got themselves a good player. It really is. Look, there's been a few things that I found really weird. And again, coming back to the Mark Gay situation, like, how do you want a guy right up until the end of the window, and then you want a guy in the next window, and you had James Pearce coming out and saying it seems like it's only a matter of when Mark Gay will become a Liverpool player and not if. So it'll either be that summer or it'll be next summer. And then he comes around in January. And our situation, remember, at centre-back had gotten markedly worse at centre-back, because we had an injury to Giovanni at that point. And we did nothing. We agreed a deal for Jeremy Jacquet for next season. And he goes to Man City. Now, I don't know how our season would have gone, but Manchester City lifted a trophy. And he made a big impact, as did Antoine Semenyo. And that's a gripe that I have with Liverpool. And it's a gripe that I continue to hold against FSG, because it's happened time and time again where it's been really clear what we need and they've cheaped out, whether it's that fucking disaster of Arthur Melo, that whole deal was a joke, or whether you go back even further, you talk about Ben Davies and Ozan Kabak. Like, the sticking plaster stuff doesn't work, and Liverpool need to stop rolling the dice and hoping for the best. Glamour Girls vid said no slot equals happy days so long as he's gone. Life as a Liverpool fan is so much better. Oh yeah, like the levels of optimism have definitely increased from all the Reds that I speak to. Do you think Gakpo will improve next season? So I've said this continuously. I don't think Cody Gakpo had a particularly poor season last season. He wasn't good enough, but I don't think he was awfully bad. I think the problem he had was that we lost the dynamism of Diaz, and he was somehow now being expected to become the explosive player that we're missing when it was never him. So I think his limitations became exposed more last year because we didn't have that counterbalance of somebody like Diaz. We all wanted it to be Rio, and we called and called and called, wanting more opportunities for Rio that never really came until the very end of the season. So I always said I think that is part of the reason why people became more frustrated with Gakpo. Gay changed his mind as we were struggling at the time. That's not the information that I have, Jay. It isn't. The information that I have is that Liverpool just changed their mind. Now, maybe it was one of those situations where, okay, they thought it was worth doing at the end of the summer transfer window, and maybe then they just weighed it up and they just thought Jeremy Jacquet in the longest term is just going to be a better signing. But again, you got to come back to experience, right? So we've got Virgil now. We've got GOMES, who best case scenario stays this season and then he's gone on a free. And Virgil's gone on a free. And then what are we left with as a football club right now? Jeremy Jacquet and Giovanni Leone, two really young, inexperienced centre-backs. We need to have somebody of the 24 to 26 category to be that defensive leader or to take over from Virgil. We can't fall into the trap of having just inexperience all throughout the team. We need that mix right throughout the spine of the team. Craig, what does PSG and Barcelona discussing a foreign transfer mean for us in Diamanda and Barcola situations? I would say probably nothing. And the reason I'm saying that is because they sold Gonzalo Ramos to AC Milan. So they have a space for a centre forward. So them talking about Ferran Torres is probably seeing him to come in to play that role, that kind of false nine type of role that they have. At least that's how I'd look at that situation. I think Ferran Torres is shite. I really do. Every time I've seen him for Spain as well, he's been awful. And I actually thought that they were going to push harder for Krupi. I thought he was going to be the one that they were going to bring in. Would way rather have Somerville than Cody. So I'm not sure if there's any truth to this, and it wasn't something I heard from somebody, it's something I read somewhere. But there was some chatter that Somerville preferred to move to Manchester United. Now, that could be way off, and I'm not saying it as a fact, it's just saying it's something that I read. So Prime Edit said, hey Craig, I'm from South Africa. Well, let me just stop there for 1 sec, mate, and say I'm terribly sorry to hear of the passing of the South African player today. I think 25 years of age. Heard about it earlier on, read about it on Sky Sports News, and just want to pass on our condolences to everybody in South Africa and part of the South African Football Association and their setup. Incredibly heartbreaking news, my man. Anyway, continue with your comment. I'm a Liverpool fan. I was thinking that Liverpool must sign Mokazai. He's a centre-back and he's a beast. He plays like Prime Maldini. Check his highlights. Well, we've done a lot of work bringing in young centre-backs. So we've got a young 17-year-old. Then we've got the kid that we're bringing down from Celtic. So we have been spending money on really promising talent between the ages of like 16 and 19, let's say. So I think in the future, we're going to be okay. But again, I can only talk about when Virgil leaves in a year. Where's the succession planning? Craig, do you think FSG will give Andoni the money like they did with Slot? So I never expected this summer to be one where, Leonard, where we spent a 450 million quid. Now, I know that wasn't the net figure. The net figure was in and around 160, 155, something like that. But for me, look, I just expect the positions to be filled out with decent players. I don't expect superstars in every position. Absolutely not. You know, a good right back, a good quality right back, you can probably pick one up for 20 to 30 million quid. Sell Costas and get in somebody at left back that actually has a future at the club and that can maybe step up and challenge Milos Kerkez or fill in if Kerkez is out for a prolonged period. One in, one out in midfield. Again, that could almost be somewhat self-funding. And then the right winger. And the right winger is where I expect us to spend money, and good money. But with regards to how much money, I've always been told this from anybody I've spoken to around Liverpool transfers, that Liverpool don't go into the market with a budget to say, here's 200 million quid, Richard, go do your thing. It's a case-by-case basis. They look at this squad, they look at what the squad needs, they look at individual players. And yes, money, of course, comes into it. But it isn't like, here's the money, go spend it. Because everybody would just spend it. So I think they have to make their case on a player-by-player basis and then go and find value. Elmir, always a pleasure, bro. Always a pleasure. Nice to see you win. Said, if we do only one signing this year to go into next season and guarantee Champions League, what position do you think is most critical? Right back for me, right wing, Rio/Frimpong. Also, do you think ship has sailed for Bradley? As in Connor Bradley? I think this is probably last chance saloon of a season that Liverpool say, look, you got to stay fit. Now, if we get another right back in, or maybe Andoni trusts Jeremy Frimpong at right back, maybe you can manage Connor Bradley a little bit better as the season goes on. And what else were you saying there? Champions League, what position that we finished? I think we still 5th, maybe. If we were to stop now with just the signing that we have, I think we'd be lucky to get 5th. Because over the course of the year, I expect more injuries, and we haven't replaced Canade. But 2 positions for me are critical in this: a defender and a right winger. Now, the defender can be a centre-back or a right-back or a hybrid, but we need a defender and we need a right winger. After that, you know, I wouldn't say there are glaring deficiencies in the squad, but, you know, maybe we see how players like Cody or others decide their futures, whether they want to stay or leave. Are we signing or being seriously linked with anyone? No, on the links, you know, not hugely. There's no, like, you don't even have to take my word for it. You can have a look around yourself, Google Liverpool transfer news. There's not a whole lot, which doesn't necessarily mean anything. You know, Liverpool will have their targets sorted out, as we've said many times. They would have been working on these for the past 6 to 9 months, so or maybe longer. So yeah, I know it's unnerving at the minute, but you'd have to imagine we'd see more activity. Carbon said, hey Craig, how are you today? I would bring Bowen in because he's a very versatile, and rotate him with Rio, and then next season introduce our other winger from the academy. Well, I don't think Joshua Abe is ready next season, if that's the guy that you're talking about. You know, we're still talking about somebody who's not 16 yet, if I'm not mistaken, or has just turned 16 if he has. So I don't think he's going to be ready for probably 2 seasons. And the thing with Bowen is, look, as a fan, I'd take Bowen in a heartbeat. I'd take him tomorrow. But there's no sell on there for Liverpool. So if you bring in Bowen and you pay big money for him, well, you're losing that, because you're never getting the return on that investment with regards to selling them down the line. So I think it was David Lynch or somebody said, if he'd had like a release clause, I mean, there's relegation contract for 20-25 million, maybe you'd take a punt. And I love Bowen, but I just don't see Liverpool going in that direction. And also, he doesn't have the pace we'd need. But as the multifaceted forward, and remember, Ian Doyle, I think it was, said he expects one more winger for Liverpool and one more versatile forward. Bowen could be the versatile forward, absolutely. He can play right across that front line. Do you guys watch the Spain-Belgium game? I mean, the irony of both the Belgian goalkeepers shit in the bed for the two Spanish goals wasn't lost on me. You know, why is it when we play Thibaut Courtois, he turns into the greatest goalkeeper in the history of the universe? But that shot he palmed back out yesterday was shocking. And Laments as well. I mean, two goalkeepers cost Belgium 2 goals in that game. Shell Timicus and get in Maxi Araujo from Sporting at left back. He's an absolute baller. Again, I don't know what happens at left back. But if we do keep Costas, we either have to give him a new deal or let him go for nothing in the year. So we're just kicking the can down the road. Mike said, João Gomes makes so much sense, Brazilian pitbull, and loves Liverpool. So there was a comment from him in the past, I think it was 2020. I actually have it here. Let me read it out for you. One sec. Connor sent it on to me earlier on, so bear with me. I'll read this one out to you. It was, where is it gone? Is it this one? No, there was a tweet from before. Yeah, I don't have it. Basically, it was him in 2020 saying, wow, Liverpool, what a team. Awesome. And then there was a quote from him that said that he'd like to play for Liverpool. That was going back a little bit as well. Benz did a bit actually earlier on today, and he said, João Gomes will be a really smart signing for Liverpool. Bit of a Wijnaldum-esque player. Press-resistant midfielder who covers a lot of distance, works tirelessly, and is a good ball carrier as well. He went on to say that only Elliot Anderson, with 231, has won more ground duels in the Premier League last season than João Gomes, who had 199. Which, for that price, if he's, won the second most amount of ground duels in the Premier League last year behind Elliot Anderson for, 35% of Anderson's fee, that seems like a pretty good deal for me, and a player who would love the opportunity to come and play for Liverpool. Before he said, Liverpool is a team I would play for. I've greatest desire to play. Playing in the Champions League is my biggest dream, and that of my family, my biggest dream in football. So there's no denying that João Gomes would be up for the move. This was back in 2022 as well. João Gomes, talking to ESPN about Liverpool scouting him, said, playing in the Champions League is my biggest dream. And he'd love to play for Liverpool. So certainly, I don't think that would be a problem convincing the player, anyway, if Liverpool wanted to do it. We should sign the Moroccan keeper. I don't think Bono's good enough. I watched him at Sevilla. I haven't really kept tabs on him. I think he's in Saudi. I don't think he's good enough to come in to be Alisson's replacement. I'll never understand why we didn't keep Kelleher, apart from the fact he wanted to get more first-team football, but I would have rather keep him than have Georgie at the minute. Mr. Habesha, how are you, sir? Said, what's new on Andre Rachu and Arnu Martinez transfers? Some saying Rachu is close, but yesterday Spanish media linked us with Martinez and his Zabarani update. So the Rachu one's an interesting one. Obviously, Andoni Iraola knows him from Rayo Vallecano. He's definitely somebody that I know Liverpool have been close to making a move for and could make a move for. So I don't know is the honest answer, mate, but it's certainly a credible link to him. Zabarani, we discussed a little bit earlier on, somebody who had been linked with us maybe last summer, but could be an option because I think PSG would at least be willing to do business for him. And of course, again, Iraola would have known him from working with him. It is mad though. I seen somebody mention in the chat earlier on Vlahovic. Where does he end up like? Because he's out of contract, right, at 26. You would think somebody would be tripping over themselves to try to sign Dusan Vlahovic. I remember him being linked with Arsenal back in the day, but it is a mad one. Like, he's on a free transfer and it doesn't seem to be, at least from my understanding or from my reading of transfer rumours, not a whole lot of interest. Keane said, it was never really a case of Kelleher or Georgie. To be fair, the choice was 2 more years of Valley or sell him and give Kelleher the number 1 shirt. Well, no, I think there was. another option there, Keane, as well, mate, where we could have put Kelleher to Brentford with a buyback option, and we didn't. And that's the biggest mistake of all of it for me, is that, yes, we have a sell-on for Kelleher, but not to have a buyback option inserted into that deal just feels like stupidity to me. Who would be your top midfielder transfer target? I can't answer that question, Ben, because I don't know the profile of the type of player Raiola wants. And I think, when we play a couple of preseason games and we see how we set the midfield up, and we see, what licensed midfielders are getting to get forward or who's staying back, probably have a better understanding of it. If you look at the midfield pairing that he had at Bournemouth, he had Tyler Adams there and he had Alex Scott, one of them there to break up play, win ball, the other one a bit more progressive. So hard to know. I wonder what's happening with Archie Gray, because surely Spurs have to make sales. I don't think they do. I actually don't think Spurs have any concerns with PSR, because Spurs have been really good at having low wages for the last few years. Now, they've broken their wage structure this summer, bringing in Tonali and Mateus Fernandes and whatnot, but I actually don't think now that they have any concerns around PSR or FFP or whatever the fuck it's called these days. Tom said, Kema Andreas from Stuttgart for me. Well, he was a name I was told to keep an eye on. I said that a couple of weeks ago on the channel, speaking to people. They said that was a name that Andoni Iraola is fond of, came through the same youth team as Victor Munoz at Real Madrid. I think they won a treble in the under-18s at Real Madrid at Stuttgart. I think Real Madrid's buyback option on him has gone. I think they did have an option, but I don't think they triggered it. I do think there's a sell on there for them, but certainly a name that is worth keeping an eye on. I can see Vlahovic ended up at Atletico Madrid, suits their style of play. Perhaps, yeah, particularly if they do end up losing Julian Alvarez. I watched Mamardashvili at Valencia and on the national level. Fans have a short memory when it comes to Kelleher. He made bare mistakes when he started. Did he? I think you're wrong about that. And I watched quite a bit of Georgia Valencia, and it's hard to really gauge because he was in a shit Valencia team. And, it's easy to get caught into a trap of a keeper making loads of saves or having a high save percentage in a shit team. We fell into that trap with Mignolet before. Now, I'm not saying that Georgie can't come good. Certainly feel like it was an understandable signing to bring in. But when I've seen him play for us, he hasn't done anything really wrong, but he hasn't made a save or done anything that makes me think, oh, wow. But then again, I don't know how to judge the level, because we're judging him against Alisson. And Alisson's the best goalkeeper I've ever seen in a Liverpool shirt. So, it's probably an unfair comparison. But as with mistakes from Kelleher, I mean, as much as any goalkeeper is going to make some mistakes, I don't really have much recollection of Kelleher doing anything god-awful. Real Madrid didn't have a buyback option on Kema Andres. They have a first option if they were to be sold. I think what I'm trying to say there, Simon, is whatever the clause that they had was, I think it's expired. I don't think they have the option anymore, at least from my investigating of searching the internet for information. That was the last thing I'd seen. Which is basically the same thing, by the way. Whether you have a buyback option or first refusal, it's usually a first refusal with a number. So it's kind of the same thing. Or, gives them for a shot either way. Aaron said, seems like turmoil behind the scenes. Thoughts? Turmoil is probably a strong word. I don't think everything's rosy. I think I've said to you guys on a few occasions that there's been a good bit of finger pointing towards Richard Hughes from people that I speak to. But I don't know if I'd use turmoil as the right word. It just feels weird, that again, neither of these lads look like they're seeing out the third year of their 3-year deals. Edwards is already gone. And Hughes looks like he's gone in September. And Simon Jones earlier on said exactly that. That does feel weird. And it does kind of make me worry for the future. It's okay talking about succession planning, but, are we just going to keep bringing somebody in, they go, and then we promote somebody else up from within? Is it going to be Julian Ward again? Is it going to be David Woodfine? I don't know, but I just want clarity on it. And I hope the next sporting director is here for a prolonged period. So, Jordan, you've named 2 mistakes. Cool. And I'm not saying a goalkeeper doesn't make mistakes, Jordan, but he also, was part of the team that won a trophy in a cup final at Wembley. I've seen him play for Ireland, of course, on many occasions as well. And I just think he's a good goalkeeper. And I think to say that we have weird memories or that he was shit or made, no, you didn't say shit, excuse me, I'm putting words in your mouth, made a lot of mistakes. I just don't have that recollection of a lot of mistakes, or to use your own phrase, I think it was bare mistakes. I just don't have that memory, mate. Still think it has made a mistake not to go for Tonali. Maybe. Maybe. Yeah, he's a good player, but 100 million steep as well. There was something else. So also, when we talk about goalkeepers, whether it is Allison, whether it is Kelleher, whether it is... a goalkeeper really is only as good as what's in front of him as well. If it gets to the goalkeeper, it's usually gone through 3 areas of the pitch to get to that point and probably had a couple of mistakes along the way. Unfortunately for any goalkeeper, whoever they are, when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, it's usually a costly one, and it's usually a headline grabber because they're the last line of defence. Is Gomez guaranteed to join us this summer? Nope. Nobody's guaranteed at this point. What we're saying is the deal to Atletico's fallen through. There has been some conversation now that Liverpool are interested. The player's absolutely interested in coming to Liverpool, and the transfer fee, if it's even close to the one that he had agreed there to go to Atletico, is very reasonable. Stump up the money for Rayan. I agree, but I just don't know what the money is. Excuse me. I know he has a release clause for January, which is astronomical. It's like 130 million quid. But outside of that, mate, I just don't know. I'd love Rayan, and I agree. What do you think of Macca's new shaved hair? I thought I'd ask you as I'm really interested. Look, shaved heads are class. Shaved head means you're fucking serious. Mo with a shaved head showed he was serious. So shaved head for me means I'm ready. I'm focused. And I have to say, I've been really impressed with Macca at the World Cup with Argentina. I think he's had a good tournament. I fear we won't see him in a Liverpool shirt for too much longer, but I think he's had certainly a better World Cup so far than I'd say he would have had season with us up to the time it ended. Craig, is your opinion on Minta softened after Ben's comments on the podcast? No, I think as an option, Dave, he's okay. But if he's the guy to play on the right wing, no. Or if he's the guy, let's say, that shifts Rio to the right and he's to play on the left, no. I just don't think he's good enough. I just don't, and I can only give you my honest opinion. But somebody said to me earlier on, what if Liverpool got Rayan and Minta? Different story. Then there's not as much pressure on him to come in and succeed. But I don't know. It just feels very underwhelming to me, Dave, to go from Diamonde, who, yes, was overpriced, but was a clear talent that, a lot of clubs were looking at, to go to Minta, who, if we really wanted him, we could have got 2 years ago from, wasn't it Newcastle he was on loan from? And we didn't. And I don't know. It just feels underwhelming to me, mate. I just never been one that excites me. Thoughts on Mateus Fernandez Pardo as versatile forward to come in. So again, speaking about what Dave said on the podcast, we did chat about Fernandez Pardo, and I said to Benz, I'm actually surprised we haven't seen more links with him and lots of clubs, because certainly he's been on a few shortlists that I've seen done for lots of different clubs. Maybe something happens now, but yeah, that one I don't know on. I know he was on every one of the lists that every publication put out there for Liverpool's options this summer, but I've never really seen much written to say Liverpool are about to make a move or anything like that. And I don't know all that much about him. You know, I wouldn't have watched much of him. What's this one? Oh yeah, so I want to go through some stuff from Dominic Szoboszlai actually. Keane just reminded me of some of the Szoboszlai quotes I wanted to work through. So, Dominic Szoboszlai did an interview with L'Équipe, and in that interview he was saying, I have too much ego. The more people try to tell me I'm not going to succeed, the more I take a perverse pleasure in proving them wrong. That's why I have so much love for the people sitting on their sofas who talk nonsense about me. I like that swagger. I do. And I'm also somebody who loves ramming it back down people's throats when they write me off. So, good. I like them fighting words from Dom. Also, Dominic Szoboszlai, some more quotes from him. He said, I'm playing in different positions. He said this, I could easily say I don't want to play fullback. Either you put me in the middle or I'm not playing. But I don't do that because I want to help my team in every way possible and I want to win regardless of the position I'm forced to play. I mean, I don't really get that because that's like saying I could go out there and have a shit in the centre circle, but I don't have a shit in the centre circle. Yes, mate, you could say you're not going to play right back, but you'd be gone at that point because you know, you're not a team player. But he has been, and like you said, he's happy to play wherever he's needed for the team. And again, he'll always do a good job wherever he is as well. He said this, I don't put myself today in the category of Mbappe, Haaland, Lamine Yamal, Vinicius, because at the moment, I've not yet reached that level. Well, let's hope he does, and let's hope he does it in a Liverpool shirt. Speaking about his favourite position to play, he said, my favourite position is central midfield because I've all the options, play short, long, run with the ball, make runs without it, shoot from distance or come inside. On the season ahead, he said, I'm convinced we can compete. I'm hopeful that with the new coach, Andoni Iraola, we'll be heading in the right direction. Which again, all good things and all positive things to hear from Dom. Just want to make sure there's nothing. There was actually a link today with Bayern Munich and Jules Koundé. I think I mentioned it in the earlier video, but just in case I forgot, Christian Falk has said that Bayern Munich are interested in signing Jules Koundé from Barcelona. So there's a couple of things today coming out of Italy around Curtis Jones. One report said that Curtis Jones has reached an agreement with Nottingham Forest, with Inter now set to miss out on the midfielder, and Curtis Jones basically all but rubbished that by putting a raised eyebrow emoji in under a comment, which basically seems to say no, he's not going to Forest. But there's been a couple of more reports that suggest that Inter are going to come back in with a €30 million offer for Curtis Jones now. Let's wait and see if they do, because it does seem like he wants to go to Inter Milan. Capults said, I won't be happy if we do sign Minta. I really don't think he's good enough. Would much rather see Elliott staying as a young backup right winger. I just don't think Elliott has the pace for right wing. I think I would view, in my eyes, just my view, I would view Elliott as the alternate for Wirtz. So somebody that can pick up pocket. Now, I'm not saying he's on Wirtz's level. I'm not saying he's as good as Wirtz. But I'm saying if we're making a change or resting somebody, I could see Elliott coming in to play that position with a bit of a free roll, to pick up pockets of space and try and make things tick. Rook said, in fairness, it must be infuriating for Szoboszlai to have been fullback so often when he was brought in to play in midfield. Absolutely. And again, like I said, he did the job very well. Yeah, it was. And it was ridiculous last season, the way we were forced to play him or Jones at right back. It was just stupid. Keane said, may I ask what people's main concerns are with Minta? Yeah, he's not good enough. That's my main concern. You know, has he had a stellar season that he's lit it up at Brighton or at him? Nope. You know, sometimes, Keane, I think you just need to understand that people don't agree with you. Because every time we have a conversation, you'll never just say okay and walk away. You always have to have a word. And I just don't like him. Just, you know, for me, just don't think he's good enough. Just not exciting. Not in the caliber of player we're talking about for a Mohamed Salah replacement. I can't speak for everybody else in the chat, but I just don't think he's good enough. And I don't think he's done anything to show that he's good enough or to justify that big move. I just don't see it. You're not my twin, UK Gaming. Thank you, mate. Kapul said, biggest concern over Minta is he's just banging average with little to no potential. Sarah said, yeah, Minta's not good enough and Brighton will ask for crazy money. Well, I don't know on the price thing. I'd seen 80 million quid doing the rounds, but, you know, surely that would be a non-starter. Yeah, surely that would be a non-starter. Sorry, I just got to remove this fucking weirdo. Ivan Cruz said Minta is just not flashy enough, but he is true right winger and he can create for others. Isak and Wirtz haven't been good enough either. No, absolutely not. But we've already got them, and we've said many times the pressure is on them to succeed now. But like, I feel like when we have these conversations, sometimes we're dragging our level down. Like, remember what we're aiming to replace here. So, you know, the bar was set high in that particular position. And I think to be suddenly scraping around talking about the Yakuba Mintas of this world, I just think it's too drastic of a fall off. Now, if he was to come in as a second winger, like let's say we sold Chiesa and he came in and we had another one, no problem. But I just think for me, it's too much of a risk. Paul Martin said his numbers are poor, always have been, and I don't think those are scalable when he gets into better team. So, I mean, one thing I would say is whoever does come in on the right wing, I'm certainly not going to be judging me by the goal return. I think it's all about getting the front line firing and getting the ammunition in for Isak and stuff like that. Simon said, Craig, you have to remember Keane loves Adam Wharton. That's true. That's true. You know, and Keane's probably just disappointed that he can't get Wharton on the back of his Liverpool shirt. Because I know for a fact Keane has it in his basket with Wharton ready on the back of it and all. And he's just a bit disappointed that it can't happen. So, Keane, here's one for you, right? Just to flip the conversation and flip the question. What is it about Minta that you think maybe I'm not seeing or others aren't seeing? That, you know, because I promise you, I'm open to be wrong, and I've been wrong about many players that have come into Liverpool over the years. I've had concerns about and they've turned out to be brilliant. Like, I wouldn't say I had concerns about Mohamed Salah, but I certainly had no expectation that he was going to deliver what he delivered over the time he was here. Leone and Jake are going to be the best centre-back pairing in the Prem for the next decade. Verge leaves, the two are unbelievable. May be the case, but we still don't have enough depth there. And you can't just go in with those two going forward. I think we're one centre-back short, but I agree with you on the quality of the lads we've signed. You know, yeah, no argument there. Who's going to score the goals? Isak not had a proper season and won't be able to play 2 games a week. Hugo injured, Dan's fitness issues. Well, we have Will Wright. Dan's may get a breakthrough. We will get Hugo back. And look, I get the centre forward thing, but it's a tricky one because you can't really go out there and sign another centre forward of big stature because what happens when Hugo comes back? So it's a short-term problem, but it is a problem. And I do appreciate where you're coming from. Grim Reaper said, looking at Brighton, Maka to Minta, Maka had something about him we're seeing now. I take Maka 100 times before Minta. I don't get what people see in him, looking for gold and getting plastic. Keane said, I believe Minta has all the raw qualities we want in a winger in terms of pace, 1v1 ability, directness, off the ball work rate, creativity, left-footed and young, a selfless player to platform others. Well, genuinely, mate, I appreciate you writing that out because makes it pretty clear what you see in him, and I appreciate you. And I appreciate that we can debate as well, Keane. It's one of my favourite things about you, mate. You know, we often disagree on a lot of things, but it's always respectful. It's always a bit of fun, and you can always take a bit of a ribbon as well. So, appreciate you. Phil Singh said, Craig, your opinion of Minta is the way I feel about Bowen. Not good enough. I get that, Phil. Absolutely, mate. I can get that. So, for me, with him, it's just the versatility, I think, Phil. that I've always been a Bowen fan. I can't deny that. I have. I always wanted Bowen when Jurgen Klopp was at the club. I thought he would have been a brilliant fit for us. But I certainly have no qualms if we don't get Bowen this summer, and I don't think we will. But at least with Bowen, I would say he's a bigger body of work in the Premier League that, would at least speak a bit more highly of him. And of course he would have, because he's a good bit older as well than Minta. What do you think about Kudus, maybe in exchange for Gakpo, playing the right and even centrally? It's an interesting one. Sorry, I promised somebody before I wasn't going to keep tapping the desk, so I'm going to try and stop. Tough, because he didn't have the greatest of years last year with Spurs. He's looked like a far brighter player. So the thing initially, and again, I'm open to being wrong on this, would he work hard enough off the ball, Kudus, to work in our team? That would be one concern I would have about Kudus, but, certainly knows the league. Why has nobody talked about Nico Williams? Because he doesn't necessarily want to go. He said, I think as recently as this World Cup, that he's happy to stay at Bilbao for the rest of his career. And I think his dream move was Barcelona. And when that fell through, now I'm not saying it's impossible. Like, that connection that Iriola has with Athletic Club Bilbao certainly would open doors. And I think, Ian, if I woke up tomorrow and seen that we were moving for Nico Williams, I wouldn't be at all displeased, mate. I'd be happy with it. But he's on a pretty high wage as well there at Athletic Club, because they don't really pay transfer fees, so they can afford to invest in the wage structure. Kapultz said, really don't think we should sign Barcola if we don't sell Gakpo, and definitely not for the price currently on the table. Look, if we got Barcola, look, I'm not going to lie, if we got Barcola, I'd be happy. I'd be happy, because I could understand that signing. I still would have concerns about the end product with Barcola, but looking around who's available and options and wide players in this window, I'd have to say, yeah, that would be okay. Especially with Rio as well, with young Victor Munoz, and then it'll be interesting to see what happens with Cody. But I would take Barcola in this window. I'm almost too afraid to get fully invested into it, because it still feels like what I'm concerned about, even the possibility of yet. But as each week goes by and we're not really seeing much activity towards wingers, I'd be a liar if I said to you that internally I'm not wondering if Liverpool are really confident on this, and maybe they think they're going to get him once PSG get their ducks in a row and get all their deals lined up. But it's a risky game to play, isn't it, just in case they don't. Either sign Szoboszlai to an extension or sell this summer. Oh, dude, we have to sign him to an extension. Oh, like, that should be one of the priority bits of business as soon as the transfer window closes. Dominic Szoboszlai should be the next captain of Liverpool Football Club, and I think we should move heaven and earth to keep Dominic Szoboszlai. I do. And Dye from Everton is class. I'd have him known as zero chance. Yeah, he's good, Tanya. He's a good player. If you had 250 million, who would you bring in, and what would your value each player? Oh God, Connor. I'd probably throw up to 100 million at Barcola if it was possible, or 85 million at Rayan. I wouldn't spend more than 20-25 on a right back, and whether it's Ratu or whether it's somebody else. I'm really still sort of disappointed we didn't have a look at Fran Garcia, especially at the price he ended up going to Real Betis for, which was like €4 million plus a 50% sell on. That could have been a good credible option at left back. Centre back, Maxence Lacroix would be somebody who I wouldn't say no to, but ultimately I think Nico Schlotterbeck I would love to have as the future Virgil van Dijk replacement. Jules Koundé I wouldn't say no to on the right side either. Midfield, whoever Andoni Iraola wants for his system, and that's, I don't have the profile of player to confidently enough give you a name that he's going to look for. And then the word utility forward keeps getting mentioned, and that is something I think is important because we are going to need some help through the middle. So if you can get somebody that can play right across the front line, that could take some of the burden off. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are inside the last minute of the stream, and I just want to say before we head off a couple of things. Firstly, don't forget to enter our competition. This month we're giving away a £150 voucher for the Collector's Corner. We're going to be giving away a prize every month this year with thanks to our friends at thecollectorscorner.co.uk. All you have to do is scan the QR code on the screen. That brings you into the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp group, where we will always put all of our competitions, polls on the channel, transfer news, shit jokes, all that kind of stuff into it. So please do sign up to the WhatsApp if you haven't. And yeah, enjoy the World Cup tonight. 2 great games on. Really interested to see how they get on. Last favour to ask you all, if I can, before you head off, hit that like button for me. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And I will see you. Same bat channel, same bat time. See you back here tomorrow. Much love, my friends, and enjoy your Saturday night. Thank you for dropping by.